Welcome back to Beers and Pigskins. We are back for another week, NFL edition here. We are 7 weeks down into the season, going into week 8 now. Am I correct on that assumption? We're
I believe you're correct, yes.
inching closer and closer to halfway through the season. And I might say it's going too fast for me. I wish it would slow down a little bit because I know we're going to be 4 more weeks later, and we're going to already be, this team's clinched for the playoffs, and it's just going to be over before we know it. But crazy weekend this past weekend. I'm sure all of you are aware of all the nonsense that went on with all of the upsets. Vegas won a lot of money last week. Buffalo was upset. San Francisco was upset. The Rams were upset. Who else? Let's see. Detroit got blown out. No one was probably expecting that to be a blowout.
Yeah.
Broncos beat the Packers. Eagles took care of business, what seemed to be relatively more easy than a lot were expecting against the Dolphins. Just an uncharacteristic week in the NFL. But I would say more often than not, you usually have at least one of those. And I think this was kind of the first one. So hopefully we got it out of the way. Because we both did not do too hot on our overall picks for last week. But again, I think we were kind of right there with the rest of America. So nothing that we particularly went crazy on. You went 4-9. I went 5-8. Nothing to boast about there. And I, unfortunately, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I didn't spend really Sunday there, but was there for my Saints on Thursday night in Vegas, which I kind of lost hope early in the game, and then I almost got real greedy. I'm glad I didn't do it, but I was looking at the live money line, and it was at 6-1 when it was 24-9, I believe was the score at the time. And I was telling my buddies, we're all sitting there. I'm like, guys, because they were all continuing to bet Jacksonville. I think the spread line moved to like 7.5 or 10.5 at some point in the game. I was like, guys, Saints are going to come back and win this game. We're going to come back and win this game. And you know what? They should have. And I'm not going to harp on the guy. He has already beaten himself up enough. But Foster Moreau, unfortunately, dropped the game-tying touchdown on third down in the end zone. I think that what's his name? Pat McAfee said something that was really nice and a really good point. It's like, look, dude, you beat cancer like a few months ago. This isn't the worst thing that's happened to you. Like, brush it off. Like, it's good that you're taking it hard because it means a lot to you and you want to perform well. But at the end of the day, like, it's just a game. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Come out next week, make up for it. But yeah, heartbreaking loss there. And also heartbreaking loss for I don't know if I call it heartbreaking. It just didn't go the way I thought. Your Raiders. I was kind of feeling like it was going to be a duel of the backups, and I thought that Hoyer was better than the D3 quarterback, but apparently I wasn't right.
See, where you're less experienced, I've got a lot more experience, and let me tell you, lesson one, it's the hope that kills you. You can't have hope. You can only be surprised when they do well. See, the Saints were down 24-9, but they start coming back a little bit, and then you got some hope.
Yeah.
And then it just hurts all the more in the end. See, the last 2 weeks, I can be really happy and celebrate the Raiders winning because it's surprising. And, we don't look completely inept. I'm not going to say that the Bears loss didn't feel bad at all. It does, considering how bad the Bears are. They're still not a very good team. And like you said, nothing against, I believe his name is Tyson Bagent.
Yeah, something like that.
he looked like a good quarterback against us. I believe it was his first start. I had praised the defense a couple times in the last few weeks, and we made a. Again, I don't know how to put this without really kind of ragging on him, because that's just disrespectful. But a guy making his very first start. It wasn't his first snaps in the regular season. Obviously, he played like the second half of last game. But yeah, he looked really good. The Bears offense looked really good. The Raiders offense looked really bad. The only thing I will say is I don't know what Brian Hoyer is doing in there. I understand, maybe wanting to have the most experience because you're hopeful to still make the playoffs. In my eyes, just from what I've seen, even though I love my Raiders to death, I don't see us making the playoffs. Just we've got way too many things that are gaping holes for us. Maybe if everything goes right, we slip into the 7th spot. But me as a fan and somebody who wants to see this team, play well moving forward, I just think Aiden O'Connell has a lot more upside right now than Brian Hoyer does, and I would love to see him get all the experience in the world that he can while Jimmy G is out. Brian Hoyer, kind of slinging the rock around in the second half of last game was kind of look good there for a couple drives. But it was one of those things. It's like I felt like it wasn't going to last very long. Yeah, I don't know, but as I'm saying, you can't get your hope up too much.
Hey,
because then it's just going to feel worse in the end.
Yeah.
And my team has been bad minus 1 or 2 seasons for 20 years. For most of my life.
Yeah.
And at some point, hopefully, they'll turn it around. But for right now, we're still bad.
Yeah, that's what everyone's telling me, and it's really hard to accept because I was fortunate to live in the prime of the Saints franchise, and most of my life they've been relatively pretty good. At least on offense, they've been really good. And it's kind of a tough pill. Like, I expected the immediate aftermath, like season 1 and 2 post Drew Brees. Okay, this is going to be real tough to turn it around. But like now we're going on like what, year 4-ish, 5 maybe. And the defense is still solid, but like it's not getting any better. That's just a hard reality of like, okay, now do we just tank and go for another generational QB possibly in this next draft? Or do we stick with the $150 million that we paid for Derek Carr? So, but both our teams are both 3-4, so maybe they'll finish the same record at the end of the season.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the best I can describe it is you've seen The Water Boy, right?
Fantastic.
And my reaction to the Raiders and Bears game yesterday was that guy. I don't know who he is, but it was the, oh no, we suck again. Like it's just like, yeah, it's just it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the Rob Schneider cameo.
Yeah,
that's a great. It is making that movie. I feel you there.
Yeah,
that's a hard thing to accept, though. I think at least for this season, while I have seen flashes, my hope is going to remain there. I'm not going to give up hope on the season yet.
Okay.
Again, because, or at least in our scenario, you're now 3 games back of the Chiefs, so you're struggling for division there, whereas the Saints are still essentially tied for the top of the division, even though the Bucs are, I guess it's a half game because they played one less game but the division's still on the horizon, if you will.
For sure.
In the cards, but yeah. before we keep going down that rabbit hole, I think we're going to change it up a little bit here.
Yep, we're gonna change it up. I gotta put my mic down to be able to do this.
Yeah, I'll set the scene. I'll set the mood here, the tone. We're joined here today, our sponsor. So yeah, what we're gonna do is instead of waiting to the end of the episode to go into the beer, we're actually gonna go to it here at the beginning of the episode. That way we can actually enjoy it throughout the episode. Doing it virtually here, we obviously had to go and purchase the same beverage, but also as it's sitting here out of the fridge, we don't want it to get warmed up. We want to enjoy it at prime room temperature. So today's episode is brought to you by Hofbrau Munchen, another German beer. It seems to be a theme thus far. You can kind of see it if you're watching here.
I think I have to make noise for them to be able to see it. Google Meet's doing a great job of blocking out the background, and they think the beer is with that as well.
Let's see it. I can kind of hold up the bottle a little bit. You can kind of see the logo, but it is a bottled beer. Looks like it's another German beer. Let me read some of the details. This is the Hofbrau Dunkel. They had a couple different ones, or at least at the store when I was searching, but it says it is a dark Munich specialty. Dark specialties were being made in Bavaria long before the advent of pale beers. Over the years, Hofbrau Dunkel lost nothing of its popularity. With the rich flavor, it remains a refreshing beverage suitable for all occasions, a traditional Munich deliciousness. It is, 5.5% alcohol by volume. Not too shabby. I'm going to go ahead and, is it a twist off or I got to actually use an opener?
I had to use an opener. I don't believe it's a twist off. I have taken a couple sips, and it's quite nice. It is. I didn't even realize it was going to be this dark. However, just first impressions, that was not a good reaction.
No, I was just smelling. My nose is still kind of like.
If y'all couldn't see that, I'm not sure if you'd be able to see it in the recording, but Mason sniffed it and had a very adverse reaction to whatever he just smelled.
I'm still getting like my full range of scent back from being sick, and so it was just, it surprised me. It was a more stronger smell than I was expecting.
Yeah. So I'm trying to like have a comparison to, something that's more popular here. I don't know, maybe like a slightly heavier, darker Shiner, maybe.
I was gonna say, I don't know. It's kind of like I don't even know, an amber.
What I do like about it is that I do like beers that are darker, and hopefully a couple weeks down the road we'll get you to try this. I am a fan of Guinness, and it's a very dark beer, but it's still light. I do like beers that can be darker but still aren't super heavy.
Yeah,
and I think this is what this accomplishes.
It is a lot lighter than I was expecting for seeing how dark it is. I think that's always my hesitation going with darker beers, is knowing that heaviness is potentially there, and okay, I don't want to drink half or just one beer. I'd like to be able to comfortably drink 3 of them is kind of my go-to number. And I don't know if I could sit there and, again, I haven't had it yet. It'll be my first time, but sitting and having 3 Guinnesses worries me. I'm like, oh, is that something that I'm going to be able to, or am I going to power through one?
And you generally correlate dark with, being a lot heavier. And so I do think it's solid. If I had to put it on a scale, and I will say that I did take a trip with my family when I was younger, when I was, a spring chicken. It's also 17. Not that long ago. What was that? 8 years? 7 years? I actually did visit a Hofbrauhaus in Germany. cool place, very what you would expect, just kind of like a hall with, the big mugs of beer and whatnot. But a cool place to go and visit. I think they have many across Germany from what I understood. It wasn't just like one of them that was there. But yeah, very solid. I think I would give it, maybe a flat 7, maybe maybe a little bit lower, like a 6.8. But very solid. It doesn't blow my socks off. And it's not my favorite that I've tried. However, I think it's very solid.
Make sure I heard you correctly. You said a 6.7 or a 6.8?
I said a 7 flat, but probably more down
okay.
like a 6.8 or something like that.
I was going to give it a 6.6. I think it's, for me, again, I'm not a huge dark beverage kind of person. And so it's hard for me to like set where my scale is going to be. But I actually enjoy this. I think it's a good beer. And I think as far as like the setting goes, I would love to have one of these if I was sitting in Germany, like, at a Hofbrauhaus, or if I was any kind of beer place in general or restaurant there, just kind of even sitting outside on the back patio, hanging out, having some like cheese and sausage, sipping a Hofbrau Dunkel, I think would be a solid scene. I think that would be a good pairing too. I'm not gonna lie. Thinking
Sounds
about
like a pretty good time.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
or going down to Wurstfest in I think it's in Fredericksburg or somewhere, which is kind of like Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Where they do a bunch of German stuff.
I-
That would be a cool experience.
I see the vision.
Yeah,
sure.
no, so highly on this one. Like I mentioned, that at least at my Total Wine, they had at least like 3 or 4 different Hofbrau variations. So I might have to see what else they got and try those out as well. It seems to be we're very, again, your kind of lineage a little bit, but I also recently went there and then just enjoy German style stuff. So I think German beers are usually going to be in our wheelhouse on this show in general.
Yeah. In other words, we're very white. That's what he meant by our lineage. We're very white. My skin is scared of the sun. We'll put it that way. Anyways, getting into our picks of the week. Hopefully we can do a little bit better than we did last week at 5-8 and 4-9. Starting out with Tampa Bay at Buffalo. I don't know what to do with Buffalo.
How do you trust Buffalo?
They seem to be the quintessential we play to the level that our opponents are playing at.
Yeah.
Which is extremely frustrating because you see them play against the Dolphins and they really took care of business there. But then they struggle and lose to the Patriots. There's just so up and down. I'm taking them again. I don't love it, but I'm gonna take them versus Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm gonna take him too, and I'm just now looking. 2 of Tampa Bay's 3 wins were all on the road. All of their losses were at home. So Tampa Bay is playing better on the road. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think Buffalo's at 8.5-point favorite.
Maybe if you wanted to take Tampa Bay with the points, maybe, because they're playing on the road, if you wanted to do that.
That's not a bad shout.
I did not know that they're a better road team this year than they are at home. That's quite interesting. Side note, I don't know if we could ever get this in, but if you remember a long time ago on ESPN before the noon games would start, Chris Berman and the crew would do all their picks, and they had that music behind them, the da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. I would love if we could get that in there. I don't know if there's copyright things with us, or if we talk too long, that might also be an issue. But that's just every time we do this, that's what I have playing in my head.
Yeah, no, that I think there definitely might be some copyright things there. Also, just the technological aspect of doing that. I'm stupid. I don't think I could do that. Um, I'm sure someone would know how to. Another thing I was thinking would be cool, in addition to the music, was like obviously we probably need to spruce up this whole background situation we got going on. It's not the greatest, but it does for now. But also when we say our pick, if like I also can implement it to where the logo for that team pops up on the screen, it's like actually
That
know,
would require a lot more editing that
yeah,
we're just we might be too stupid to do.
yeah. Maybe, somebody will volunteer their services that is just a really good editor and will do it pro bono. But
yeah, just a really nice person. So if y'all know anybody, moving on, we have New Orleans at Indiana. I told Mason before we started recording, I don't know what to do with this one. I really don't. I don't believe really in either team to pull this one out. I think the spread is literally a point. Seems like Vegas doesn't know what to do with it either. Yeah, I took Indianapolis. Don't feel good about it. Gardner Minshew, I think the only reason is because that offense had a pretty good day against a very good Browns defense. I think that's really the reason that I'm taking them. Thinking they will move that kind of into this week, but I don't feel great about that.
First off, I don't like the fact that you called them Indiana. It just sounded weird to me.
Yeah, I know. I yeah.
Secondly, yeah, not a whole lot that I'm happy about here or feeling confident in, but I have to back my own team, and I went with the Saints in this one. Lovely news today. Chris Olave arrested for speeding, which is just a lovely thing to come out after all the stuff that's being said about him not being motivated and whatnot. I did see many memes that said Derek Carr is driving Chris Olave crazy, making him speed just like Henry Ruggs, which I thought was kind of a shot. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to ride with my boys on the road. I'm hoping they can step up. I'm a little bit worried about not Indy's defense per se, but it seems like Jonathan Taylor is finally starting to wake up a little bit now that they're getting him more touches. So I'm hoping they can stop him because I feel confident. Again, I'm pretty confident in the passing game, although Christian Kirk had a pretty big game against the Saints last week. Apart from that, I mean, Calvin Ridley, 1 catch for 5 yards, was completely absent. So they're at least shutting down receivers continually week in, week out. It's a matter of stopping the ground game, which ETN had a couple scores. So Taylor and that duo with Moss has played really well all season for kind of really not knowing what the expectation was going to be with Taylor in and out. But rolling with the Saints. Next game, we got a handful of different picks this week. I think I kind of did some of that as well just to be crazy so we could go back and forth with it. But we got the Rams taking on the Cowboys in Dallas, or Arlington, I should say.
Yeah, I have Dallas this week as much as it pains me. I do think the Rams will be looking to bounce back from losing to Pittsburgh. But Dallas is coming off a bye week. They're going to be, I would think that they would be, pretty fresh, pretty ready to go. They have an extra week to prepare. And I think that, as far as their expectations go, they'll be looking to really get their season back on track. And I think a win versus the Rams is a solid win as of right now, how the Rams are playing. They're not top of the league, but they are. I still do think that they're a good team. They've got Cutback. Puka Nacua is still putting up very good numbers, even with Cooper Cutback. And that's a really solid 1-2 punch. Basically, we'll be looking to see if the Cowboys can stop the Rams passing game. But I'm still taking the Dallas Cowboys. They're looking to right the ship, and I think they'll get it done.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Stafford and crew in this one. Not very confident in this pick, which is great. But I'm also not really confident in the Cowboys right now. They do have the rest, which is good, but I think they're really going to struggle to stop the duo of Cup and Nakua. I think losing Diggs is going to be a far bigger blow than people realize for this defense. This Gilmore hasn't stepped up and proved that he was Gilmore of a few years ago, which again is kind of it's hard to replicate what you do, especially being an older corner.
I think he was a great number 2 for what they got him for, but now he needs to be a corner number 1.
Exactly,
Again.
which I think is too much to ask. And Parsons can't do everything. He's been dinged up here and there. So, like, I don't think he's been 100% any week so far. I think if they can hold coverage well enough and give Stafford time to make the throws, I think this offense could go put up some points against the Cowboys, which is my kind of fear. And if it becomes a shootout, Stafford just has that grit in him for some reason in those style of games and somehow ends up on top. There's 6.5 point dog, but I like him. I didn't lock him in, did I? No, I didn't. Okay. But I'm going with the Rams here. I wouldn't be mad going taking the 6.5 points in their favor. I think it's going to be really important for the Cowboys to establish the run game with Pollard, get that going efficiently to be able to open up the pass game and play action. We saw a little bit more from Gallup recently. I think if he can continue to produce, we saw a little bit of Cooks, but they just can't keep putting everything on CeeDee Lamb, who's playing really well, but they very easily could have lost that game against the Chargers last week. But anyway, rolling with the Rams in that one, having some fun with it. Next, another difference here. I got Tennessee at home taking down the Falcons.
You skipped a game, my friend.
Oh, did I?
You don't want to talk about Minnesota and Green Bay?
No, we both picked Minnesota. Next.
Yeah. Green Bay is not good. We picked Minnesota next. Okay, so yes, Atlanta and Tennessee. I picked Atlanta. I don't love what they've been doing, but I do like what they've been doing, especially compared to expectations. I think Desmond Ritter's figuring it out maybe a little bit, not a ton, but maybe a little bit. I think that they've played up to their competition. I think they've played a lot of close games. I think they're sticking in there long enough that they can just kind of hang around and kind of win a couple close games at the end. And I think I just kind of go back to, I don't think Tennessee is a very good team. Hopefully Atlanta will have, Bijan back. I know it was super weird with him supposed to be playing, but then not playing, and he was kind of sick, so he didn't play. Mason, care to chime in?
I would just say this is the problem with the sports betting community and industry standards. There is requirements on injury reports and so forth for this exact reason. I was very big on Bijan Robinson this past week, not only in my matchup against Jacob, but also had money on him in Vegas. And for him to basically not see the field and for some reason get a random carry, which is probably just to make sure the books don't have to refund bets for not playing. He gets a carry with 45 seconds left in the game to run out the clock. It's frankly inexcusable. Arthur Blank owes me a refund directly from his own checking account, which I'm sure he can afford. It's ridiculous to 3 years in a row you've drafted Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson, and Arthur Smith for some reason just doesn't like them. On the very first drive, you had Jonnu Smith some dude I don't even know that plays wideout. I've never heard of him. He probably got called up from the practice squad this week. And Cordero Patterson trotting down the field, driving down for an opening field goal or touchdown, whatever it was. And I'm like, is this a joke? What is happening?
Whatever scores the points.
Well, then why waste the draft capital, right? You know, I just don't. You could take what draft was it? Well, just like defensive players, right? That they could have taken with those picks. You have Kyle Pitts. Sure, I'm nor here nor there on it. Like a lot of people think he was a generational tight end talent. And the kid's a freak again, but I also think, you saw a relatively very small sample size when he played that last season at Florida compared to like Bijan Robinson, who was time and again proven as this generational back. You had Saquon Barkley was probably the next closest thing as far as terms of hype of Bijan's talents, right? He was a do everything back, and he was fast and extremely shifty at the same time. And we've seen glimpses of that in games so far. The juke in the London game, the behind the back catch, quick shifty little Texas route touchdown. You've seen it, but the volume's not there. And in this game, just ceased to exist. And apparently, because Twitter was blowing up about it, they point blank asked Arthur Smith at halftime, like, "Yo, what's going on? Why isn't Bijan in the game?" "Oh, he's dealing with an illness. He might not play the rest of the game." Well, why is my boy even suited up? And why even bring him in? I assume you're using him as a decoy, sure. But, I don't know. Extremely frustrated, and probably more so because I had money on the line. But again,
yeah, so we're not going to bring up Bijan for the rest of this podcast. Moving on, Mason has Tennessee.
Well, yeah, with that said, I'm rolling with the Titans this week at home. I think the Falcons, the Titans like to show up randomly. Right now, Ryan Tannehill didn't practice, actually. So there's a chance that Malik Willis starts this game. So it could be extremely ugly. But for some reason, just like the Saints did against Tennessee in week 1, they like to show up defensively against certain teams, and the NFC South is usually one of them. So I think Atlanta probably struggles against that defense, even though they just traded Kevin Byard to the Eagles. But yeah, I'm going with Tennessee. I'm off the Falcons this week more so than I normally am.
Yeah. Yeah, totally understand. Moving on, we have New England at Miami. We both have Miami. Unsurprisingly, I'm just going to take this one. I don't think a lot needs to be said. Yes, New England did just beat the Bills, but I think it's more from the Bills playing down to their opponents. I think any team that has lost to the Raiders still qualifies as not a good team in the NFL. So that's just the metric that we're going to use there. The Dolphins, they didn't beat the Eagles last week, but their offense is still really great. I'm going to take them against New England, and I see you do as well. The Jets at the Giants. What do you think?
Yeah, this is always a fun, battle of the Meadowlands, battle of MetLife. I will say I've been to a handful of games at MetLife. It's always a super fun experience. I purely went with the Jets for 2 reasons. Everyone's on the Tyrod Taylor, however you want to pronounce it, Taylor, kind of train with playing the way he's played thus far with Daniel Jones being out. However, I like what the Jets defense obviously brings to the game. I think they're really solid across the board. I think the Giants are going to struggle on offense, but also I really like the way that Breece Hall is playing, showing that he should be and is the number 1 back in that team. And if Zach Wilson just makes a few throws, we've seen progression. We've seen him do well in moments. If he can just stay calm, stay collected, find Garrett Wilson. He's your guy. Don't make any mistakes. Don't throw the ball into triple coverage for no reason. I think the Jets will be outcoached by Robert Saleh as opposed to Dable in this game, and that'll probably be close. But I like the Jets to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I like him for the same reasons, and I'll just throw one thing in there. I've started to love Robert Saleh a lot more over this season and just recently. I love coaches that are players coaches, and he definitely seems to be one of those guys.
Yeah,
And he just seems to absolutely love his team and wants to see him do great things. And just you have to love it. I have to love a coach that's there and is really in it for the player. So, yeah, I agree. Taking the Jets.
he's kind of like the Dan Campbell of the AFC.
Exactly, and I love Dan Campbell too.
Yeah.
So
He's a little more grounded, but he's got that same. He's what you want in a head coach, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
He's for the players. But
For
anyway,
sure.
next
we have
got
Jacksonville at Pittsburgh. I know that we were kind of both taking that one on. Who do I have? Oh, I have Jacksonville.
that would be the smart choice.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of coaches that I just like, I do really like Mike Tomlin. I think he time and time again is able to put together good teams. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers are somehow 4-2 right now, with how terrible that offense is, and I think Mike Tomlin has just a great ability to find ways to win football games. But I'm taking Jacksonville. They had the win against the Bills, and then a couple weeks ago. Yeah, that's right. And then they beat Indianapolis pretty handily, and then they take on New Orleans, which it did come down to the line, and unfortunately, was kind of cemented after a drop touchdown catch. But I do like the football that they're playing. They're playing good football without getting Calvin Ridley involved. He's just kind of a expensive, really good decoy out there, which is unfortunate. Hopefully they can kind of get him going a little bit more, and they can get him some more targets. I like the football that they're playing. I do think it won't be a high-scoring game because you're going up against the Steelers defense that is really solid. They're playing good. And it's not that Jacksonville's defense is amazing or anything like that. They have a good defense. But the Steelers' offense is still kind of inept, even though they did put up 24. They still have some work to do. So that's why I'm taking Jacksonville, most likely in a close game.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be, Jacksonville's the favorite here. And I do like Jacksonville, but I'm going different, and I am going with the Steelers. And part of that is being a home game and the defense. I think if TJ Watt can continue to do what he's doing, the dude's a one-man wrecking crew. Like, I don't want to say single-handedly, but kind of won the game for them against the Rams in a way with the interception, which usually big linemen like that, and technically I think he's listed as a linebacker because they play a 3-4 defense. Is not kind of dropping into coverage, taking picks, let alone taking them back for 20 yards or whatever. But I'm not convinced with I'm really not convinced with either of these teams, but I think if they can make Trevor Lawrence's life difficult and they can stop the run, that's the reason I think Jacksonville's been successful in some of these games, is they've been able to really work the ball through ETN and still be successful on the ground, which even when they're not working the ball through the air, they've been able to get down the field and at least kick field goals. But I think if they can stop the run and force Lawrence to throw the ball, not that he's a bad thrower of the ball, but like you said, Ridley's kind of been absent. And so is he going to show up in this game? Are they going to trap Kirk? Are they going to trap Ingram? They do have so many weapons, so it's a really tough one. And I'm probably dumb for going with Pittsburgh in this one. Definitely don't trust Kenny Pickett. But I don't know. I just got this weird kind of gut feeling for some reason that Pittsburgh's going to pull off an upset. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to try to rationalize it anymore.
Yeah, totally understand. Moving on, it looks like we have, a couple of the same picks coming up here. First off, Philly going into Washington to kind of complete their series already this short into the season. It looks like we both have Philly again. For me personally, it's
Washington blows. They're convincing me they're the Arkansas of the NFL. I thought Sam Howell was the dude, and I don't get it.
I put my lock on them last week, and I was just
they played the Giants and they put up 7 points.
I know. I was very, very frustrated. And the Eagles are coming off a pretty dominant win. Big win against a good team. Yeah. The offense looked great. Defense looked good. I mean, you hold the Dolphins to 17 points. That's pretty darn solid. And there's not a whole lot more to say. I was extremely disappointed and extremely impressed. What's up?
Sam Howell is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL.
Oh, I watched a good amount of that game, and the dude was on his back for a lot of that game.
Like, I get there's a level of your line's not very good, but at the same time, I watched so many times we're just holding on to the ball for too long, or he's making these throws that are like just make no sense. Maybe he's not the answer. Is what I'm getting at. They felt confident when they brought him in for 1 or 2 games at the end of the last season. They should have kept Taylor Heineke. He probably would have been doing better than Sam Howell is. It's so frustrating when you have a talent like Terry McLaurin, and I know what Jahan Dawson's ceiling can be, and it's just like, what's going on? Why can't we do it? And you got speed and Samuel.
Who knew that Mason cared so much about the quarterback situation over in Washington? Very interesting.
I got some of them.
Got very, very heated.
I got Terry McLaurin on my fantasy team and some guys on my best ball teams and DraftKings.
And we're moving on to actually one of our first picks of the week. We have Houston. Yeah, thank you for the background music. I appreciate it. We have Houston at Carolina. I'm taking Houston as my lock straight up for the week. I really like what Houston's doing. Are they going to go super far in this season? Probably not. I still think they have. I think they have like one more year to where they're actually a real contender. But I like what D'Amico Ryans is doing. I think he's doing a great job with what he has and what he's built there. I think CJ Stroud has at least started out as the, should have been the number 1 pick. Has been definitely been playing better than Bryce Young, and actually will get a chance to do so directly in this game. So that should be fun to see, 1 versus 2 pick. And I like the trajectory that Houston is on compared to Carolina. I think Carolina's got a lot to figure out over there. Not saying that they won't. I just think they got a whole lot going on their plate right now.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the offensive rookie player of the year in the Texans and CJ Stroud.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think they've just kind of their defense is really solid as well across the board there. And they're just the offense that they built for Stroud works really well. They've schemed it up very well. They have a lot of players that get open across the middle of the field, which is working splendidly for Nico Collins, Tank Dell, who's been hurt. Dalton Schultz is finally starting to show up a little bit. He's had a few touchdowns recently. But yeah, the Panthers quite hasn't panned out the way they'd hoped. Obviously, it was a work in progress, and it wasn't going to be a immediate playoff turnaround for them. But there have been some kind of worries that maybe this is not the way you'd hoped it'd be. And if I'm Dave Tepper or whatever the owner's name is, I'm kind of sitting here thinking, okay, I'm 0-6. I spent my draft pick on Bryce Young. Let's say you go, you're the number one draft pick again. Well, did they trade their draft pick? Yeah, they traded their pick to Chicago. So they don't have the top 2 pick, even if Chicago might turn out to have a top 5 picks. But anyway, you're kind of sitting there like, well, crap. Is Bryce Young the real deal? And there's been flashes here and there. But it's definitely a little worrisome. But I think CJ Stroud is proven he might be the really good fit for Houston and be the real deal there. So I think he takes care of this rookie 1v2 matchup as well.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. And then we have Cleveland at Seattle.
Explain this one.
What?
I said explain this one to me.
I don't know what to do. I hate the offense, love the defense. Seattle's been playing good football. They had the one recent loss to the Bengals, but it was still a very close game. It was a 4-point game. But you talked earlier about, one of those like gut feelings, just like feeling weird about it. I think the Browns have just found themselves in a couple close games and they were able to pull them out. I think this game is going to be the exact same way. And yeah, that's all we'll say. Hopefully their offense can put up enough points and kind of piece a couple things together. I don't really know what was going on with Deshaun Watson. With him kind of going through concussion protocol at the beginning of the game there, but also, clearing concussion protocol, but didn't come back into the game. I don't know if it was his call or a coach's call. Not really sure there. But yeah, we're gonna close our eyes. We're gonna take the Browns, and we're gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go with the Seahawks in this one at home. Deshaun Watson's awful. I'm just gonna make that point blank statement. They held him out to protect him when we all know the truth was he sucked.
He was 1 of 5 for 5 yards and an interception.
I watched him throw that ball and it landed about 15 yards short of its intended target. And I was like, this dude needs to be pulled out of the game. And that's when he went down on the ground and came out. And I watched the replay. I was like, my dude didn't even really get hit. I think he just is faking an injury because he knows, sure, his shoulder might not be right. He said he's been dealing with a rotator cuff soreness, but I think that might go down potentially, 5 years' time, looking in hindsight, as one of the biggest gaffes in giving him a fully guaranteed contract. But with that said, Cleveland defense is good. We did see going up before Indianapolis, they had been really, really good. Really good against the run and the pass, like top 5 in both, I think. But Indianapolis was able to move the ball on them. We saw that. Seattle, I don't know why Kenneth Walker doesn't get the ball 25 times a game. The dude is a freak. Like, it could bulldoze you, but also has 4.4 speed, kind of freak. So I think if Seattle can establish a solid run game, I don't trust Geno to win the game with 35 passes, especially if Metcalf is not playing. He sat out this past game. We did finally get to see Jackson Smith and Jigba's first touchdown, which was encouraging. I did have him in my one lineup in the contest that cast for me, which was nice. So it'll be nice to see them work him into the offense even more as the season goes on. But I like Seattle's kind of offensive experience here to beat Cleveland's. I just don't think Cleveland. I don't trust Watson or PJ Walker. Just not my cup of tea there. But moving forward, next, I think this one's a pretty easy pick. We both have Kansas City taking a. Oh,
I was just gonna say, it looks like we have the same picks pretty much, for the rest of the road here.
yeah.
Kansas City, Denver. That's not a hard pick to.
I think the offense is finally starting to click for Kansas City, or at least we saw that this past week, which was good. And they got Hardman back, so we'll see if he gets a little bit more involved this next week.
Got Kansas City, and then we have Baltimore at Arizona. Like what Arizona's doing still, even though they've dropped their last couple games. But I mean, how can you not take Baltimore after what they did?
Lamar is probably I haven't looked at it, but a good chance he's MVP leader right now.
Yeah, I actually don't know who that is, but yeah, he's definitely up there. And deservedly so, especially the last couple weeks. He's played so well. Our last couple here, probably the one that we want to talk about the most is Cincinnati at San Francisco. This is one that I have as my spread pick of the week. I'm just realizing now that you also missed your spread pick of the week by not talking about Philadelphia at 6.5. But I will talk about that. Also might have been my bad, because did we just kind of glance over that?
Well, I think what happened was I read yours thinking it was mine, and just was waiting until we got to this game. But yes, no, my lock of the week via the spread, I'm taking Philly 6.5 over Washington. I think they probably clear that by like 17 points.
I don't disagree there. We are both taking Cincinnati straight up. And I'm also taking, if I think, I'm taking them straight up, I'll happily take the 5.5 points as well, as my lock of the spread of the week. I think what's going on in San Fran is weird. Do I think they're not a good team? Obviously, no, they're a good team. I think something that's happened with Brock Purdy, especially on Twitter, I think Twitter is just such a terrible place sometimes, because after like 3 weeks, especially after the Cowboys game, it was Brock Purdy might be the greatest quarterback on the planet right now. And then we fast forward 2 weeks where he didn't play super great against the Browns. And, he struggled a little bit as well against Minnesota. And all of a sudden, we're back on Brock Purdy's not a good quarterback. And I think it's everything on Twitter just gets personified, way over personified. And I think it was always the case of, hey, Brock Purdy, as long as he's making throws, that offense is great. When he's not, the offense really struggles. They have some guys out, which obviously when you have Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel out, you're going to struggle a little bit more than you normally would. I think they're getting kicked around. I think they have some things to figure out. It's all about a momentum thing, I think, with this pick for me. I think the Bengals are headed up. They're very positive right now. They're playing some good football after struggling the first few weeks. And I think the 49ers are kind of in an area where they have to figure it out midseason. I still think they're going to be in the playoffs. I still think they're going to be a contender for the Super Bowl. I just think they're kind of in a weird, hey, we got to figure out some things around some injuries. How do we get back to playing how we were? And so that's why I'm taking Cincinnati with the points and straight up.
Yeah, I'm just going to fully go on the fact that we jinxed them. They're not going to win another game for the rest of the season. We talked about how great they were, and they've lost two in a row, and they're going to lose this one. Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming off a bye, getting him even more healthy, getting that calf good to go. I think we kind of talked about a few weeks back that San Francisco was so good because of all the playmakers they had. And when you take away the playmakers, okay, what can Brock Purdy do? And we're kind of seeing the dividends or lack of dividends from that. And again, not that he's a bad quarterback, but there are, when you're forcing the game on his shoulders, it makes it a lot more difficult. He's a lot more human, and that offense doesn't operate clearly as efficient as with the people it's intended for. But closing out the game with back-to-back interceptions on both drives is not encouraging. So, yeah, I think just the momentum is not in their favor at the moment. I say what happens is they probably drop this game against the Bengals, and then they probably rattle off like 5 straight or something like that, to bounce back. But yeah, we're going both Cincinnati there. And then
we have Las Vegas. Nope. We have Chicago and the Chargers, which prime time, both taking the Chargers. It looks like, even though it's the Bears, I still don't feel good about it.
I fully am picking the Chargers to win because if they lose to Tyson Bagent and the Bears, then Brandon Staley needs to be fired. 100,000%. No excuses. Your time is up. You have been given chance after chance. You cannot drop a game to the Chicago Bagent Bears. It doesn't make any sense with the weapons that you have. So if they do, then I'm okay with losing this pick, but that has to be the consequence of what happens. I can't accept anything less.
All right, well, fair enough. I think that's all that needs to be said. And moving on to our Monday night game, we have the Las Vegas best team on the planet, Raiders.
The Raiders.
The Raiders playing the Detroit Lions. I unfortunately, I feel like I can see this game. I can see it really well. The Lions are going to be very unhappy with how last week went, and they see the Raiders on the schedule, and I think it very well could get ugly. They're just going to want to bury a team after they got buried. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't want to see my boys get buried. But it just kind of feels like that kind of game. We do play decently better during prime time, it feels like, at least this season a little bit. So I'm hopefully going to ride on that. I don't know. But yeah, I just don't like the trajectory of this game. I don't like how it's looking. I'm taking the Lions, unfortunately, and I don't think it's that hard of a choice.
Yep, no, I agree. I think this is the bounce back week. They kind of got their world rocked a bit by Baltimore. Campbell's going to get him in shape. Look, the score is not, definitive of who we are as a team, and they're going to come out and probably put up some numbers. What I will say is it was encouraging to see with Montgomery out, Gibbs actually had a relatively efficient game and actually finally got into the end zone. So maybe, just maybe, especially after a 3-touchdown performance by Mr. Deonta Foreman. Maybe Gibbs has a breakout game in this matchup. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm going against my boy here and his team, and I'm taking the Lions as well.
Yep. It's okay. I'm on the same page as well. But before we wrap up, we just wanted to hit just a recap on DraftKings to make myself feel a little bit better. Mason, as we kind of alluded to earlier, learn to not put 3 Raiders on your team. It was a tough week. Honestly, for both of us, I didn't have that great of a week. I only put up 105.
That's terrible.
I don't know if I want to put you on blast. Mason put up 48.
48. So I'll
That's
say
rough.
this. I did put up a 160er in the actual contest, the money contest. But I will say this. When you go big or go home, there's sometimes where you go home and there's nothing to write good about. I purely went with the why can't I think of it? Brian Hoyer play because he was the cheapest quarterback that was starting an NFL game that Sunday. It might have been around the same. Him and Tyson Badgett might have been the same. But the first drive was promising. Devonta Adams had like 3 catches in the first drive. And I was like, okay, here we go. We're cooking. Let's do this all game. And then it just immediately went down when they missed the field goal. But nonetheless, that's part of the gamble that you make when you're going with those crazy super low picks. Whereas I should have stuck to what I did outside of that. And every other lineup I did, I had the Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce stack for the most part, or Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews stack, which were very formidable matchups. But yeah, you live and you learn. So you're back 1 up on me. Is that right?
Yes. 4-3.
4-3. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll bounce back this week now
Yeah.
that the Bengals are back in town. So you know what that means.
Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are going in the lineup without a doubt. But yeah, that just about wraps up this week's episode. If you didn't have anything else.
No, just close it out with, appreciate the listeners. We'll get this uploaded on the normal schedule. Apologies for the delays in last week. I'll get those uploaded to the library as well in this week's episode. Hofbrau, don't forget it. Go check it out. Solid German beer. Like, comment, subscribe. This one's for all the listeners out there.
All right. We appreciate y'all listening, and we will see y'all next week.
Peace.